Hello and welcome to Veterans of the Valley. I'm Tom Turbyville. There is a common thread among veterans that runs particularly through those that we call the greatest generation. Following their brave service to our country came a long career of labor, supporting their families, earning their retirement. Well, for 25 years, Bryan's Raymond Schultz was a plumber at Texas A&M until his retirement in 1985. But today we salute those years of his youth when, as a member of the 547th Antiaircraft Artillery Automatic Weapon Battalion, he found himself on the final march through Europe, attached to and following behind General George S. Patton. Yes, whether it was the movies or the old newsreels, we all are familiar with Patton's blood and guts speeches to his troops as he led the Third Army in that final push. Well, Sergeant Raymond Schultz was there, listening. It's just one of his memories of his nearly 4 years of service in the United States Army. And it's a pleasure to have him today. Sergeant Schultz, welcome. And let's just go from the very start. You're a young man out of Brenham, Texas, and all of a sudden you're in the Army now and you find yourself in California. That's where you did your training. You were stateside for about two and a half years. Talk about what you did in California first.
Well, I went over there, and when I got there, for about a month or two, they made me corporal. Mm-hmm. Then about another month later, they made me sergeant. And I was a sergeant, drill sergeant, you know. And I had to drill the guys for infantry drill and bayonet practice and all that we had to go. And then we had to go out to the firing range and fire our guns out there.
Right.
And tow targets, that towed them targets, and we had to go out there and shoot at them all the time. So we was out there in the hot heat.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't but about 120 degrees.
We're a little bit used to that here. These were pretty raw recruits, though, right? I mean, these were raw guys that didn't know a whole lot about what you were teaching them. So
Oh, yeah.
you had to teach them a lot, right?
Oh, yeah. They come from the eastern states, you know. Mm-hmm. And when they got through training them, well, we got on a train and California over there, right, and went all the way straight across the United States to New York.
And that's where you
we got on the ship.
Headed to Europe. Talk a little bit about the ship. Later on, we're going to see a picture of the boat, but that's kind of an interesting story. I think it was an ocean liner that had been turned into a transport vessel for the troops. Talk about the ship that you went across on.
Well, when we went across from New York to England, mm-hmm, well, it took us 6 days and 6 nights.
Right.
Got on it. And all at once, we got about halfway across. Then we had an order came out that the Germans sunk the British Mauretania. Right. And what happened, it was a tanker that they sunk. And we wasn't bothered with it.
You weren't, because the ship that you were on was actually the RMS Mauretania, and this was a ship that, it was an English vessel, right? It had been built by the English.
Yeah, they built it. The English built that ship.
Right.
And then in the year 1967, they demolished it.
Uh-huh.
That was the end of the ship.
But it was a cruise vessel, I believe, before it served in the war. Then it served in the war by transporting troops, and then it went back to being a cruise vessel.
Yeah, I think we had 14,000 aboard that ship when I was on it.
Indeed. So you land in London, and you're a member of the 347th Battalion, and you find yourself attached, I believe, to the Third Army and General Patton's Army. Talk about that experience, and your memories of George S. Patton.
Yeah, and we were attached to General Patton, and we went into France and then into Germany, and then we hit Metz, Germany, and General Patton was running low on fuel, and he said, "One of them guys are coming with that fuel." He said, "I'm about to run out," and he finally stopped and got out on top of that ship, on top of the tank, and he was looking around, and here they all come with that fuel. And when they did come, boy, he really got on them, I tell you. He said, y'all all going to run me out of fuel all the way out. So he said, I don't want to be run out of fuel no more. And so they kept on going, and that's when we followed him all the way across Europe.
I'm trying to, since we talked the other day, I've been trying to picture this, the perception that we have of George Patton. There was, of course, the famous movie that was made, Patton, with George C. Scott. We've all seen newsreels and things like that. What's the perception that we have of Patton, and what kind of a guy was he? He's perceived as a pretty rough commander.
Oh, he was rough, but he was good, because whenever he said something he wanted done, he got it done.
Right.
Yeah, he was a rough man, I'll tell you, but he was good. He did everything he said, boy, he got it done.
So your battalion was following. I mean, this was just a march through all of these countries. So you actually had him and his tanks in your sight throughout this entire march. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. We pulled off 50 caliber machine guns. See, we had those with the 4 guns on it.
Yes, sir.
That's what we used all the time. And the 40 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. That's the guns we used.
And it was your battalion's job to add support, anti-aircraft support to Patton's army. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got to give support. But I'll tell you, he didn't mess around. Because every time he go quite a ways, well, then he'd stop, crawl back out of that third tank.
Right.
And he'd stand there and look around, and all in one seat was, let's go. If y'all got the blood, I got the guts.
You remember him standing on that tank and yelling that?
Oh, yeah, he said all the time. I talked to him, I don't know how many times I talked to him over there.
You personally talked to him?
Yeah, he was friendly, but he got mad at some of them over there.
What did y'all talk about? I mean, when you talked to him personally, what did you what kind of things did you talk about? Can you recall?
I don't even remember. The only thing we talked about the war, moving on and getting it over with and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Was he interested in his soldiers? I mean, you were a sergeant, he was a general,
yeah.
But did he have a genuine interest in who you were and where you were from, and did he take that interest in the individual soldier?
No, he didn't too much, not.
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of stood for himself.
So the march went through, like you said, it went through France, and it went through Belgium, and eventually you found yourself in the winter of 1944 as part of the Battle of the Bulge.
The Battle of the Bulge.
Famous battle. Talk
yeah,
about what you remember.
We went
there.
through the Battle of the Bulge, then the war ended.
Right.
And that's when we went into Holland, and that's where we separated. And when we were coming into the Battle of the Bulge down there, all them young Germans gave up to us. They come out of them woods with them handkerchiefs in their hands and a wave, and then we was bringing them in. We put them in a truck and took it to the prison camp, and when after the war was over, turned them all loose again. Yeah.
What kind of soldiers were the Germans that were surrendering to you? I mean, they knew that they were beat, and
oh yeah.
So talk a little bit more
they were
about
young.
That. Mm-hmm.
They were young ones, and a lot of them. I talked to them, and they said we never even had no guns ever, never used no guns, and they was fighting the war. Yeah, I'm telling you, we had it with them, but we took a lot of them to the prison camp, and some of them we marched over there.
Is that right?
Got it all lined up, and we walked over that way and come back again, and it was real good.
The Battle of the Bulge, I think a lot of what history books tell us was about the weather.
Yeah.
About the Battle of the Bulge. It was in the winter of '44, and it was probably about as cold as you've ever been, right?
That's right. And that country, it had big holes in it and all that, and full of snow, and a lot of them soldiers fell down in that hole, and they couldn't get out. And after it was all thawed out, then there they were. They already dead, and they frozen.
Right.
And then, so it was something, I'll tell you.
How did you stay warm?
Oh, wearing coats and running.
Wearing coats and running, but that was part of the enemy, was the weather. I mean, because I know that soldiers suffered from trench foot, from frostbite. It was a hard thing to battle. Was the weather almost as much as the enemy during the Battle of the Bulge, right?
Oh yeah, it was rough.
Right.
Yeah, it was rough, I'll tell you.
I know that I believe that it was there at the Battle of the Bulge that you earned one of your decorations. I know you earned a medal for fighting in Europe.
Yeah.
And I had seen in your discharge papers that it was the Rhinefield, Central Europe, I believe, which probably had something to do with the Battle of the Bulge, is where you had earned that, and also a medal with 2 bronze stars.
Yeah.
What were the bronze stars for?
Well, that was the battles that we went through.
All right. Oh yeah, that's right. For each battle, you got a bronze star on the medal for the battles that you went through.
Yeah.
Is that right? You took the prisoners to the prison camps.
Yeah.
Talk more about that. You were actually driving the trucks where the prisoners were. What do you recall about those trips, and what was said, and what the mood was like?
Well, I didn't stay there too long. I just unloaded them and took back off again from over there.
Right.
But they were all right. They didn't act mean and nothing.
They were ready for the war to be over also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, them young boys wanted to get out of that deal that they was in. Heck, some of them wasn't but about 17 years old, and some of them about maybe 16. They must have just come out of school or somewhere, that they come that young.
I think a lot of us focus on our own troops and our own American troops in the war, and sometimes we lose sight of the fact that these were young men too in Germany who were fighting for a cause that, whether or not it was a just cause or not, these were young men that wanted to get back to their families just as much as the Americans did too.
That's right. Yeah, I'll tell you. We had a lot of young boys over there. I know them all. And when I was talking over there, and it was interpreter over, and them Germans come to me and talk to me all the time. My buddies that were with me, they say, "You old crowd got it made over here."
I want to talk about that because after the war was over in Europe, you spent 6 months in Europe again. And talk about your job. You were an interpreter because you were an American soldier who knew German. First off, let's talk about that. How did you learn German? That came as a youth living in the Brenham area, right?
I talked to my mother all the time in German. Her name was Lakey, and her kinfolks and all of them, they were from Germany.
Right.
Lakey. And well, I was interpreter over there, and them old Germans was real good to me. After the war was over, they give you anything you want. I mean, they even had potatoes down in the cellar of them buildings, and they said you get all the potatoes you want. I went in there one day and got me a bag. Got in there and was going to get me some potatoes, and you know what? They had a mine stuck into them potatoes and covered up, and it was about this high and about this big around. And I seen that there, and I got out of there. I said, you know what? I don't want no more potatoes. I said, oh. And that same thing happened in the rifle factory. Me and a buddy went over there. I said, I'm going to get me a gun from over here and take it home with me.
Right.
So he went with me over there, and I went out into that little old room, looked like an office. So I looked down there, and they had a cot there, and had a spring on it, and there was something hanging onto that thing, and I went and looked, and it was a hand grenade hung on that nail, on that thing. If you pull on it, you pull the pin out, and it blowed you up. So I hollered at my buddy. I said, you know what? Let's get out of here. I said, I don't want no guns either. And so we come out of there, and I didn't go in there no more.
And these were things you experienced after the war was over.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all after the war.
Incredible. You told me the other day about some schnapps that you got a hold of. What do you call that? Kafuffel?
Kartoffelschnaps.
Kartoffelschnaps.
It was made from Irish potatoes.
And that's pretty mean stuff.
Oh, I mean, it's just as clear as water. And them old people over there said, you know what? If that stuff don't burn, don't you drink it.
You mean if you set fire to it and it doesn't burn?
Yeah,
don't drink it.
Oh, it burned just like gas. Then you drink it. When it burned,
right.
He said it's good, but if it don't burn, don't drink it. So.
And you learned the hard way.
Oh yeah, we went to a ball game over there. Some of them Germans were playing ball out there, and me and my buddy went over there, and he took him a bottle along, and I'm telling you, he laid a nutmeg back. he was dizzy from that stuff. I tell you, I drank a little bit of it, but I don't know much of it.
So you spent 6 months after the war.
Yeah.
You talked about traveling around in a black car, in the back seat of a black car for 6 months, traveling around Germany, and it was your job to interpret.
I had a Spanish guy that was driving the car for me, and the guy that was in charge, he was an officer, and he didn't know one word in German, so I had to go with him all the time and talk for him and talk for him. And that's why that old German said, I don't see how you learned to speak German so good in America. I said, well, I went to school over here in Patton, Germany, but I didn't.
You were just fooling them there, right? Yeah. You had actually learned it all in Central Texas. I guess that was kind of hard for them to believe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, when I came back out of service, I took a course of German at Glenn College.
Is that right?
Yeah, old guy named Professor Smith. He was the teacher. And I made a B+.
Congratulations.
And he said the next semester will be the verbs and adverbs. Ich bin, du bist, und ist. I said, oh, heck, forget about it.
We want to go now, I think, if we're ready. You've supplied us with some photographs from your vast album of World War II and some pictures of you back in the mid-40s. And I think when we have time, we're going to go through them. And there we go. You can look right over there on that monitor there, Mr. Schultz, and look at the pictures and tell us a little bit about it. That's you, I believe, that we're looking at on the right.
Yeah, that's me, and the other one is, they call him Booger Red. He had red hair.
He had red hair.
We always called him Booger Red.
Now, was that taken in California?
Yeah, that was Camp Hahn.
During the Camp Hahn, which was near Riverside, California.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was in Camp Hahn, too. I was out there pumping water. Yeah.
You're a good-looking soldier.
Oh, yeah.
There's you in the sweater there on the right again.
Yeah.
Was that Booger again? Or is that somebody else?
That's somebody else.
That's another one of your buddies.
Yeah.
And that again is in your training in California.
Yeah, definitely California. And that's where I took a bath that morning and sat on the outside.
Somebody decided to take a picture of you.
Cooled off.
Now we get this picture was taken in Belgium. I think this picture is fascinating. Talk about this photograph.
That was what you call him, his name. I think it's on the back of that, what his name is.
Okay. I'll look there. Fred Wittenberger.
Yeah.
Wittenberger. There you are. Yeah, that's your friend there on the left, and that's you on the right?
He was a sergeant with me.
And this was taken in Belgium. This was during your march or just on a day off? It looked like you all are enjoying a beverage there outside.
No, we just had a day off over there in Belgium.
Right?
Yeah.
And was this just like a cafe on the street?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Probably, it looks like it might have been cold that time when that picture was taken. You ought to.
Yeah, it was. Belgium, it was pretty doggone cool all over Europe.
Indeed, indeed. Now I've got another photograph here that's a bit smaller, and we'll come in on it, and I'll get my fingers out of the way.
That's the German flag. We was going to take that out, you know, in a German house, and they didn't want us to have it. So we waited until they all left. We went in there and got it and took a picture of it.
So this was after the war was over?
Yeah, that's me on that stand over here.
On the far right?
Yeah, that's me.
And that's you. And so this was. And what became of that flag? Do you know?
I don't know what.
Did one of the guys take it?
I think we took it back in the house.
I see.
Yeah, when we used it that time.
So this is sort of a victory picture here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's certainly a fascinating photograph from post-war Germany.
Yeah.
Now the next picture that we're going to show, going to get you a chance to talk about Thomas Schultz. He's your dad. And if we can sort of come up here, there we go, and I'll get rid of there. This is Thomas Schultz. This is your father, and this is a photograph that was taken of him. He is a veteran of World War I. Talk about your dad.
He was a wagoneer. He delivered supplies all over Germany and all that when that war was that time. And he drove 4 mules and a wagon, and that's where he hauled all that stuff on during the World War I. Yeah.
Thomas Schultz.
Yeah. Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S, Thomas Schultz.
Now, how old were you when he passed away? Do you recall?
He was in the 70s when he passed away.
Right.
That's where, yeah, he was in the 70s.
Okay. I've got one more photograph that I want to show. It's a little bit larger photograph. We talked about the vessel that you came over on from New York to London. And here's a sketch that you have. This picture hangs in your home.
Yeah.
And
there was as a nurse that went over to Germany, went on that same ship I did, and I didn't know it. And now she belongs to the VFW over here, and she was always talking about that British Martini. I said, well, that's the ship I was on. She said, I was too. She was a nurse, you know, over in Germany during the war.
On the same ship.
Same ship. And then one guy said, where did you ride on that thing? I said, right in the front on that tip. That's where I was sitting.
And that lady is now with the VFW here in Bryan College Station.
Yeah, she's a member over there. Yeah, we talked
together. Small world,
on.
even in the war.
And
right?
she's the one got me that picture.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, she's the one got me that picture. She said, I'm going to get you a picture of that ship. She said, I got one of them. I took it. I said, well, I never did take one, so she got me one.
And that's something that you're very proud of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I took it home and put it in a frame and hung it on the wall. Every time I walk in that room while I look at my ship.
You were in the service for just under 4 years, and then you came back to the United States, and you were a plumber. You were a plumber in Brenham and also at Bryan Field at the Air Force Base, but then they closed that down, and you went to work at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Talk about your career after the service.
Well, I came home and I did plumbing work over there for Havron Plumbing Company. And then I worked for another guy, and then I came over here to Bryan Field. There's 4 of us drove back and forth every day from Brenham to here. And that was from 52 to 58. And then they closed it down, and one of my bosses over there, he came over here to Bryan Field, A&M, and he called me about 2 weeks later or so, and he said, Raymond, do you want to go to work over at A&M? I said, yeah, when can I go to work? He says, anytime you want to. I said, I'll see you Monday. So I went to work over there.
And 25 years later, you retired, and that was 5 years ago.
Yeah. That's 20 years ago.
Right, 20 years ago, exactly, yeah, that you retired.
Yeah.
That was in 1985, of
Yeah.
course, yes. You are a proud member of the Veteran of Foreign Wars post here in Bryan College Station, and I know that your wife, Odell, who you lost some 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
She was president of the auxiliary over there for what, 15 years?
Yeah, she was a lady auxiliary president.
Right.
She kept all the books and stuff, and she baked.
Greatest pie maker ever.
She had the kitchen, and when they had bingo over there, well, she baked pies at home, sometimes 8 and 10 big pies, and we'd take them along over there and put them in the kitchen, and then people got so used to them big pies. There was chocolate pies, coconut pies, lemon pies.
Every kind of pie.
Yeah, all kinds. And
Sergeant Schultz?
right now they're still talking about it. Says, we sure miss your wife. Baked us all them pies and stuff over here.
I bet they do. We're out of time. Thank you for your service,
Okay,
Sergeant
thank you.
Schultz. Born and raised in Brenham, 85 years ago, Raymond Schultz returned there in time for Christmas of 1945, started his plumbing career, and making new memories with his wife Odell and their family. And like most veterans, his memory of his service hardly fades at all. It was a proud time, and we remain proud of all of them. We salute Sergeant Raymond Schultz for his service and all veterans. Please thank a veteran today, and thanks to our underwriter, First National Bank. I'm Tom Turbeville. See you next time on Veterans of the Valley.